Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how we can use Power Automate to create a record in CDS for any posted form that you might have had in your environment. So this was inspired by a recent guest post that my friend Megan Walker did for ClickDimensions, and in that post she showed a method of creating these leads using a combination of the filter array action and the compose action to extract the value from a posted field that's associated with a posted form, and then use that to populate a field on a lead record. So I just wanted to show an alternative approach using the select action and then an expression to do the exact same thing. So this is just to give you another idea of maybe a slightly different approach that you can take, and hopefully one that you find easy to manage and easy to implement in your own environment. So in the video, I'll show you what I mean when I'm talking about ClickDimensions posted forms and posted fields if you're not familiar with them, and then I'll show you Megan's approach, demonstrate how we create the flow, and then show it in action. So like I said, if you've used ClickDimensions, then hopefully you'll be relatively familiar with this, but if not, every ClickDimensions web form that you have, so whether a form on your website or a form that you've linked to from an email, etc., every response to that generates what we call a posted form, and then every question that's on your form comes in as a posted field, which is a child record to the posted form. So you can see for my response to this form, this form had 6 questions, and therefore there's 6 posted field records as children of the posted form. So what I wanted to be able to do was to extract those values from here and use that to create a lead in my environment. So like I said, Megan's approach, and if you haven't read her blog, then I'll link it below, and I'd highly recommend reading it. Megan's approach in here was, first of all, to use the list record step to get those posted fields, and then to use a combination of the filter array to get the question, and then the compose action to get the value that's associated with that question or the answer. But as you can imagine, if you've got a long form, so one that's got like 10 or 20 or 30 questions, that could become quite a headache to create, a bit time consuming to create, and a bit of a frustration to manage. So hopefully with using the select action like I demonstrate and the expressions, we can show an alternative method that you might find just slightly easier to manage. So the first thing we're going to do is create our flow from within a solution, and the reason we have to do that is we want to use the common data service current environment connector, and we want to do that because it allows us to specify within the list record step which field we want returned. So just a better approach than the standard one. So first what I'm going to do is make sure it's on create an update. Your trigger could be whatever you want it to be. We want a posted form. I'll set the scope to organization, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my filter and attribute here, because I'm just going to update a field that I have on my form, but obviously you could set your own triggers as you need. Then we will do a list record step. So if I go to common data service current environment and go to list records, what I'm looking for is the posted fields. And like I say, the reason I use this connector rather than the normal one or the older one is it allows me to put a select query in to specify which fields I want returned. So again, this is just slightly more efficient and better in terms of your API calls. Then we wanted to put a filter, so no data query on here. So what I'm looking for is to make sure that for the posted fields that I'm getting returned, the posted form value is equal to my form that I'm triggering this from. And then finally what I want to do is include an order by. So the order by is basically just allowing us to specify the way the data is returned to us. And so what I want to do is make sure that it's returned in a consistent method. So I'm putting the CDI label in, which is effectively the question, and that allows me to ensure they're returned in alphabetical order for me, which is really useful. So once we've got that, what gets returned to us is something that looks a little bit like this. So a long JSON file, but it gives us for each question, we get the label and the value all returned. But obviously this is a bit frustrating to use, and I'm really only interested in this bit. I'm not interested in the rest of the information, though it is useful. So what I'm going to do here is use the select action. And so the select action allows you to manipulate that data set and to extract the information you're interested in and effectively discard everything else. So what I'm doing is I'm taking it from the output of the list record step, and then for my map I'm going to create a matching pair. So I'm going to say for each label, give me the value associated with it. And what ends up happening then is this gets turned into this. Much more useful. It's an array that's returned, and we can work with this much easier. So if you're not familiar with arrays, and I did talk about them in my last post, arrays are effectively a collection of related data elements, and so each element can be denoted by these curly brackets that you can see, and each element has an integer value starting from 0. So this is element 0, element 1, element 2, element 3, element 4, and element 5. And so you can see, if we go back, this would be, we could work with it, but it's not that straightforward. So this is much easier. We can see we've almost got one column of questions and then one column of answers, and that's super simple to work with. So what we then want to do is use a create record step. And I'm going to create a lead. And if I go back to here just a second, so if I want to get the company name, what I need is the information from element 0. So how do we do that? Well, if we go to company name and then go to the expression, what I want is the outputs from the select step above, and then I want from that select step, I want the information that's in the body, and then in the body I want the information that's in element 0, and then from element 0 I want the answer to the question company name. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So like I said, we're really looking at, if we break it down here again, so I'll just go back to the start of this, I want the output of the select action. From the select action I want to review the body element 0, and I want the answer to the question company name. And so we do press OK here. I can set the topic to lead created from ClickDimensions form, and if I go to back, I'll bring up this again. So first name is element 1, so if I go to my first name here again, we're going to put it in an expression. And again, we want the outputs from, we want the body from that output, we want element 1, and we want the answer to the question first name. There we go. And then we can do the same for each of them. So if I take my last name, take the email, I want the job title, and I want the mobile phone. So again, if I just look in here, we can see we've got job title, for this we've got the telephone, for this we've got the work email address. So we can save this, and then we can run a test on it. So if I do test, and I'll perform the trigger action and click save. And then if we go back to our record, I'll just update that in query type field. And now our flow will run in just a second. There we go, our flow has run successfully, which is great. So I'll run you through each of those steps so we can see the output from there. So like I said, we've completed that trigger. If we look at the list record step, we can see the output that we're given here. Then if we go to that select step, we can see we've been given that much more concise output. And then finally, if we go to the create a record step, then we'll see the information. And if I go to my leads and just refresh this, then we can see I've now created this new lead. So I've taken that topic that I'd hard coded in, but then I've taken that first name, last name, job title, test, company, blah, blah, blah. So that's super useful. Hopefully really straightforward for you to implement in your environment and make sense. So like I said, this is just an alternative approach that you might be able to use in your environment, not necessarily restricted just to ClickDimensions forms, but really to any information that you're wanting to manipulate, that you have like child records that you want to get information from, or you've got data pairs that you want to get through and manipulate into arrays. What I will say with this is, if you are using it for these forms and somebody in your environment was to change the name of a question or to add or remove a question from that form, that will have an impact on the success of the flow, because those array values are hard coded. And to be honest, I'm yet to find a way around it. So if you've got any great ideas on that, then please drop me a note on Twitter or on LinkedIn, or pop a comment on my blog, or drop me an email. I'm always happy to connect with people, always happy to hear great ideas. So hopefully you found this useful. I found it a great challenge to do, and it's been quite interesting to deal with these data elements. So like I said, if you've got any cool ideas, then let me know. Until next time, cheers.